Hello, I am not a creative person. I've worked hard over the years to embrace and convince myself of that fact, and I'm here today to tell you why. So I'm going to cover the reasons why creativity is actually dangerous for our health, and I'm going to share my top 10 tips on how to avoid it completely. I'm even going to give it to you in a handy dandy little handout so you can have it at your fingertips, and I will do my best to keep it as boring and uncreative as possible. So let's do it. So let's get real. People idealize creativity. Oh, you're so creative. Look at your painting. Let's listen to your poem. Oh, let's gush about your cake decorating skills. What? It actually looks like a real turtle. Whoa, your room is so perfectly painted. And with a mural? Did you do that? Why don't you play your guitar and hum along while you tell us how great it is? But for some of us, the world does not work that way. We are not accused of being creative, and thank goodness. Here is a quick understanding of why creativity should be avoided at all costs. First, it sets unrealistic expectations. Say that you're all creative and you make the cake or you do the cool thing or you dress in some awesome way all the time. People come to expect it of you. Now the bar is set so high, you never get to relax and you're always trying to be all creative and special in the world. Way too much pressure. Second, it can lead to terrible fashion mistakes. Say that you're so creative and you start listening to yourself and not listening to the people who tell you what you should wear or what the latest fashion is, but you actually do your own thing. You feel comfortable in your own body, you wear things that you like, that you look good in. Your fashion is going to get so ahead of the time, no one is going to understand you. They'll look at you, roll their eyes, and giggle in the background. Do you want to have to deal with that? It can also lead to an emotional roller coaster. When people are creative, they have feelings. And sometimes their feelings are all euphoric and happy and high, and I'm in the flow, and this is so great. And sometimes they experience the sense of being down or sad or depressed, which they then tap into for this creative genius. Who wants those feelings? If you stay nice and in the middle, you don't have to deal with any of it. There's also this idea of sleep. With all of those creative ideas buzzing in your head, who's sleeping? Not the creative types. I tell you all the time, sleep is a pillar of foundational health. It is wonderful, it is important. So if you want sleep, ditch the creativity. But you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at history. Highly creative people are often highly eccentric. For example, Nikola Tesla, who was incredibly creative, did amazing things in the world, never got married, and supposedly fell in love with a pigeon. Or think of your poor body. If you want to keep both ears, don't do the creative thing. So now that we've established the negatives of creativity, I'm here to tell you how to avoid it at all costs. I'm sharing my top 10 strategies for having the most boring, mundane life that you can possibly muster. Point number 1, don't be curious. And by all means, do not explore new experiences or situations. And to prove my point beyond the shadow of a doubt, well, I love my cats. I don't know about you, but I'm just saying. Point number 2, quit asking questions. You know the kids, the ones who are always raising their hand and want to truly know how something works. Don't be that way. Don't bother the instructor with your probing questions that make them question their extent of knowledge and understanding of the topic and maybe go even learn a little bit more themselves. And definitely don't get to the level where you understand something or someone so well that you actually start feeling comfortable. Comfort is a creative trap. You really want to stay in the zone of not understanding most things. It's much safer that way. Tip number 3, please refrain from playing. I know this seems relatively harmless, and millions of children get away with it every single day. But playing is a roadmap for creative chaos. Who knows what you might come up with if you're actually having fun in your daily life? And by all means, never involve a pet or a child in your adult playing experience. I have heard horror stories of people getting caught up in some kind of giggling experience and the craziness that ensues. I've added some giggles from my own kiddos to remind you of the grave danger of this playing zone. Tip number 4. Brainstorming is absolutely off limits. Normal thinking? Fine, as long as it includes lots of judgments and yucking on everyone's yum. And if you don't know what that means, please Google yucking on your yum and find out the best way to look like you're contributing when you're really just being a jerk. But the moment you start brainstorming, being open to any idea, no matter how crazy or new it might be, you are on the path of creativity, and it's a real problem. As a related side note, I was listening to the Daily J. It's on the Calm app for mindfulness, and he's a former Buddhist monk, Jay Shetty, who's here to spread the word of mindfulness to the general public. Anyway, I was listening to this, and he was talking about a research study. I am so sorry, I don't know the citation or who actually did it. But they were talking about ways to come up with a lot of different creative solutions when you have a problem in life. They looked at 2 different types of questions. And the first one is so relevant to our conversation today about staying away from creativity. When you're confronted with something difficult, try to remember to ask yourself, what should I do? This causes a strict focus on morals and norms and socially what everybody does to be accepted, and it very nicely closes off anything outside of that box. The other question, which is a terrible idea, is what could I do? This led to a much broader focus and really creative solutions for the same kind of problems in everyday life. Whatever you do, avoid the could language. Now on to the list. Point number 5, do not read. And if you do read, strictly avoid new books that are outside of your comfort zone. The best strategy is to pick the same authors and maybe even the same books that you've read repeatedly. You might want to memorize everything that they say so you can parrot it off mindlessly. If you are forced to read something new, do your best to get the same type of authors talking basically about the same ideas, so it sounds like the same author wrote it. Reading new books with different perspectives is a surefire way to open up that creative process and get yourself into trouble. Point number 6, do not journal or really just write down anything important in general. By keeping all of your great ideas in your head, you are sure to forget most of them. And this leaves you solidly in the land of been there, done that, which is a very safe place. I try not to have sticky notes around. I definitely don't want any kind of pen or marker or thing that I would like to write with, because it really keeps me trapped in just keeping it in my head and running in circles over and over again. Highly effective. Point number 7, do not, under any circumstances, be around people who are especially creative. And a good rule of thumb is just to avoid new perspectives in general. When we surround ourselves with the same exact people who are very much like us, and definitely people who don't really try new things or think new thoughts, it is very safe. It is incredibly comfortable, and it's not creative. We can relax. There's no crazy surprises. Interacting with people who are different than us or who try new things inevitably leads to things like emotion and new ways of looking at things and surprises we are not ready for. Newness is not a good place to be when you're trying to protect your own little bubble. Point number 8, Do your very, very best to avoid any dedicated time for yourself. The more you can run around like a crazy person, dedicating your entire life to other people and what they might need and just staying really busy that way, the less you have time to get to know yourself and to think. Removing this space really helps you stay away from this idea of accidentally becoming more creative. You might try the strategies of having multiple children and catering to their every need. Make sure you throw in several pets, and the kind that really can't just come take care of themselves around the edges, and be as overbearing and over-involved in everybody else's life as possible. And if anybody's accidentally been given this book or used it as a coaster for your coffee mug for several years, it's called The Artist Way. And it says right on the cover, a course in discovering and recovering your creative self. Please don't go there. Burn the book. If you can't burn it easily, just spill a big cup of coffee on it. It'll do the trick. Now we're getting to the really tricky stuff. Point number 9, do not take breaks or go outside. Now, people might try to trick you with this one. Breaks are healthy. Outdoors is so good. Forest bathing, try it. Do not fall for this trick. What they're not telling you is that every time you go out of your cave and experience sunlight or get a breath of fresh air, it somehow overcomes the most solidly boring, safe people. Nature has dangerous chemicals. Why do you think so many people choose to live in concrete jungles? They are safely away from all the craziness. Concrete jungles make us more productive. And we're not just going for the normal productivity, we want the toxic variety. Toxic productivity keeps us well away from the land of creativity. So hole yourself up in your office. If you can go to work, that's great, but a home office works equally well too. It is a great method for avoiding the outdoors, nature, and all the scary things out there. Finally, one of the most important tips is number 10, do not travel to new places. Now someone might say, oh, no worries. I'm not going to South America or Amsterdam or Pierre, South Dakota anytime soon. If that's true, good for you. Just keep watching those videos that can show you the horror stories of what might happen. But I'm also thinking even closer to home. Don't go to a new city. Don't go to that new neighborhood you haven't visited yet. And by all means, don't go to a new restaurant or a new coffee shop. If you've listened to anything from my channel, exposure to novelty, anything new like that, can lead to neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity includes this idea of forming new brain connections, which is the foundation of creativity. It's a real problem. In general, new environments equals new connections and creativity, and I don't want to be responsible for your poor choices. Hey, can we put in a blurb in this video about how I'm not their actual doctor and I'm not responsible for whatever they decide to do in their lives? All right, thank you. So there you have it, the 10 top ways to avoid creativity at all cost. And now I have to confess. I tell people the smart, the wise, the appropriate way to do things, and I don't always follow my own advice. Heck, I sometimes use sugar-sweetened creamer in my green tea, and I like it. I wear flip-flops on a rainy day in Oregon with my umbrella. And if you've ever talked to a native Oregonian, it's basically sacrilege. So while I'm telling you the inside scoop on how to not be creative and stay safe, I might be playing around the edges. Every once in a while, I am willing to risk one of my own 9 cat lives to be a little curious, and I am definitely not burning this book. But if you really want to be prepared on what not to do, feel free to download my handy dandy handout on all the things to do to avoid creativity hell. I'll put a link in the description below. So if any of you are like this too, where you hear all the important stuff to do, but you don't always follow it, you know, you can only lead a horse to water, right? I might be willing to talk to you, or meet with you in a new cute little coffee shop in my hometown, or maybe even travel far, far away to one in your hometown. If that sounds good to any of you, feel free to comment in the description below. So thanks for coming. I hope I've scared you enough about all the crazy dangers of creativity. And if I haven't, well, more power to you. It's your life. I'll see you in the next one.